This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49, and verse 20. And it reads, it says, "Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, WH0RE, that he have taken against Edom, and his purposes, that he have proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock should draw them out. Surely he should make their habitations desolate with them."
Israel just shattered the U.S.-Iran ceasefire by bombing Lebanon. Exactly 24 hours after it was signed, the shortest peace treaty in modern history went up in flames. And this strike just exposed a massive fracture inside NATO. While Washington scrambled to contain the war, Spain did the unthinkable. They officially condemned Israel, openly breaking ranks. Why would a core NATO country defy the U.S.? Geography and energy. Spain is an energy island. Their grid relies on a massive underwater pipeline from Algeria. Algeria is fiercely anti-Israel. If Spain blindly follows the American line, Algeria shuts off the valve. Spain goes dark. But if Spain can be crippled by one pipeline, how is Israel, surrounded by enemies, keeping its lights on and funding a massive war? The answer is the Leviathan, a massive hidden offshore gas field in the Mediterranean. Israel quietly transformed from energy-dependent to a regional energy superpower. But energy is only half the equation. War burns cash. To sustain this, Israel relies on a closed-loop financial engine with Washington. The U.S. sends billions in military aid, but there is a catch. By law, that money must be spent buying weapons directly from American defense contractors. It is a self-sustaining loop, which explains exactly why Israel broke the ceasefire. If the U.S. and Iran make peace, America packs up its warships and leaves. Israel is left alone. By striking Lebanon, Israel forces a reaction. It keeps the conflict burning, ensuring the American military umbrella remains physically trapped in the region. Peace wasn't broken by accident. It was broken by design.
First of all, I want to tell the Israeli government and the Israeli leaders that the moment Israel uses a nuclear warhead against any other country, including against Iran, it will be the demise of Israel as a country, as a state.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Bahasham Rakab Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Now check this out, right? So this is from the channel APT. The video is entitled, "Iran's Lego animation shows U.S. Israel as devils, calls on Muslim nations and allies to unite." All right, and I thought this was heavy because it tells you in 2nd Ezra 15 how pretty much Ishmael and the Iranians are going to come together and fight against, the Western hegemony. All right, which I want to get into because as of lately, America's been made the mockery, okay, by Iran and these other nations, right? And this is Nahum chapter 3. And starting at verse 5, because we know that America is spiritually Nineveh. All right. Nahum 3 and 5, it says, "Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord, WH0RE of hosts. And I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock." Right? This is in NLT, the same two verses here. It says, "I am your enemy, says the Lord, WH0RE of heaven's armies. And now I will lift your skirts and show all the earth your nakedness and shame." And the Lord's been doing that since the start of the year, man. Okay, with the X-Files, all the nastiness, the filth, okay, the rituals, all right, the abusing of children, the murdering of children, everything, man. How these small hats are bombing kids, families, towns, killing innocent people, All right, everything's been exposed on the internet for the world to see. All right, so they can't get away from that. Verse 6, I will cover you with filth and show the world how vile you really are. And Yahweh Shemel Shah has done that through the Spirit, man. All right, this is the time of open exposure on Esau Edom, man. Okay, on this whole entire, Edomite infrastructure, man. Okay, because really this whole system is one big Epstein file if you think about it. All right, it's rooted off that wickedness, But anyway, I want to get into this video real quick. All right, so Iran has just been dropping all types of these videos, these Lego animations showing a lot of heavy stuff. All right, they've been portraying a lot of symbolic and spiritual things, man. They showed a video early on of Trump's face on the pyramid, all right, representing Pharaoh. Okay, because we know that Esau is the modern day Pharaoh in spiritual Egypt, which is America. All right, and they showed that place getting hit with fire. All right, so it's a lot of stuff that's being put on display. All right, showing the mockery and ultimately the end of America, Babylon the Great.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا
Peep, hey, they got the two devils burning. What's that called? The obelisk, all right, which represents Egypt. Okay, and you see it's all being set on fire. All right, and that's basically the future destiny of this place, man. All right, through nuclear war.
فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا.
Yeah, so let me go back to, was it 41 seconds? All right. So it shows you the Iranians, the Turks, the Iraqis, right? Who else you had? You had the Pakistanis, Yemenis, and Bosnians, right? Now, when I saw that, I was thinking about that 2nd Ezra 15, as I was saying here, right? Because this prophecy is going to be fulfilled, right? This is 2nd Ezra's. Let me pull it up real quick. Bear with me. Let's go to 2nd Ezra 15. Let's just make the point real quick. All right, this is 2nd Ezra 15 and starting at verse 29 here. Or 28. 2nd Ezra 15, 28. Behold, in horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, the Middle East, right? Verse 29, were the nations of the dragons of Arabia. All right, that represents the Ishmaelite nations, man. Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia should come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them should be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmenians, all right, which represent the Persians, all right, the Iranians. Also the Carmenians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians, which represents America, right? So it says that they would join battle, okay, and join battle with them, all right? And what are they calling for here in the video, as we saw here? All right, they show U.S. Israel as devils and calls on Muslim nations and allies to unite. You see that? And that's what's about to happen. And they're going to unite against the Western hegemony, against the U.S. and Israeli forces, man. That's why all the controversy and drama and war is taking place in the so-called Middle East, Western Asia. All right, this prophecy is about to be fulfilled. It's happening now, man. You see that? Let's go back. Okay. It says, verse 31, and then shall the dragons have the upper hand. Okay, they're going to have the advantage, and it's happening now. Okay, they're winning the war. Okay, and the dragons shall have the upper hand, remembering their nature. And if they should turn, and it says, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. See, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. Who's them? The U.S. and Israeli hegemony, man. Okay, this is what they're talking about. It's all the spirit. You see, so that's what that's what kind of came to mind. All right, when I came across this video. All right, let's play a little bit more here, and we'll wrap this up. This is like quick, straight to the point. All right, this is from Redacted 5 hours ago. It says analysis warns Saudi-Israel deal could ignite Middle East war, dragging the U.S. into chaos. All right, as we just read in Jeremiah 49, all right, the least of the flock should draw them out.
Joining us now is Dr. Trita Parsi, co-founder and executive vice president of the Quincy Institute, an award-winning author, one of the sharpest analysts in Washington on Iran, Israel, geopolitics in the Middle East. And we wanted to bring Dr. Parsi on today specifically to talk about the Saudi Arabian angle, because this current war has reminded everyone how vulnerable the Gulf really is. Saudi energy infrastructure teetering on the verge, wider regional instability. And Dr. Parsi, I think back in March of 2025, you argued that Saudi Arabia and Israel normalization was never enough by itself to really stabilize the Middle East, and that a bad deal would be one that really drags the United States into deeper military obligations here, which is clearly where we are right now. So, Dr. Parsi, welcome to the show. Great to see you again. And as you analyze where we are right now in the middle of this ceasefire, quote unquote ceasefire, and the broader Gulf implications, where
Let's just catch up a minute. All right. Bear with me.
do you see things at this hour?
So thank you again for having me. And first on the Israel-Saudi normalization, the key problem with all of that was primarily one, that these arrangements were designed to get the United States to recommit to the security of the region. Instead of us actually managing to finally get out, this would loop us back into the Middle East. So, you saw all of these different concessions the U.S. were making during Trump 1 to get the various GCC countries to normalize with Iran. A lot of it was, more arms sales, bases, all of this kind of stuff. And from the Israeli standpoint, it was also a way of making sure that the U.S.'s commitment to Israel was now lumped together with a commitment to some of the GCC states, all in order to balance against Iran. Now, after October 7th, the whole basis for this started to decay because Saudi Arabia had an increasingly difficult time to be able to get away with any normalization with Israel while the Israelis were committing a genocide against the people in Gaza. And now, prior to this war, you had a moment in which, several GCC state officials, including one senior Saudi, was coming out and saying that Iran is not the problem in the region, Israel is the problem in the region, which really took away the whole basis for the Abraham Accord, because that was, at the end of the day, just an anti-Iran coalition that was being set up.
Right.
We have a scenario in which the Iranians have managed to essentially survive, but perhaps even more than survive, win against the United States. They're coming out of this definitely weakened in some parts, but with new geopolitical cards, because they're controlling the straits, and they've shown that any threat of U.S. force against Iran is really not that particularly effective.
Yeah, like you said, they're winning the war, and just going back to the the mockery I was talking about. All right, let's go to Isaiah 14, and excuse me, a taunt for Babylon's king, right? There's Isaiah 14 and verse 4. And it reads, it says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord WH0RE have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, which Esau's done, all right, through war, through sanctions, all right, through pushing democracy and Western policy, all right, oppression. That's part of that continual stroke that Esau has committed amongst these nations. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth, right? Same verses NLT. You will taunt the king of Babylon. You will say the mighty man has been destroyed. Yes, your insolence is ended. For the Lord WH0RE has crushed your wicked power and broken your evil rule. You see, that's what they showed in the video, right? When they had the two devils being set on fire. All right, everything is spiritual. Verse 6, you struck the people with endless blows of rage and held the nations in your angry grip with unrelenting tyranny, right? So that we're coming to an end of that, man. The Most High is about to bring an end to all of that. You see?
And this will probably lead to a scenario in which the United States actually accelerates its exit out of the Persian Gulf. And it will leave a country like Saudi Arabia in a situation in which it will probably either have to try to find a new modus vivendi with Iran, but with an Iran that is angry, vengeful, but also in some ways more powerful, and a Saudi Arabia that is also very upset at Iran because of the manner that the Iranians have struck at Saudi Arabia in this war. It can no longer rely on the US, the Saudis, so that may actually push the Saudis back towards the Israelis. It would be very unattractive for them. It would be very difficult for their own population to accept. But it is a scenario that I can see as a result of these very fast changes that are taking place in the region right now.
I love this contrarian view because, what you're seeing is a military buildup. You're seeing Reuters reporting over the past 24 hours, thousands of additional Marines being sent to the region. I said at the top of the show that I think maybe we're in the midst of a fake ceasefire, that there's just a reset in order to restock missiles.
Bear with me.
That this is going to fall apart and that the United States military will be even more entrenched. But I like your take on it, which is that this is a move right now for Trump to really exit the Middle East, get out. And now Iran will be stronger, and it'll really be up to Israel to have to deal with this on their own and other European countries. Am I summarizing that?
I think so. And again, you may very well be right. I'm just trying to put what I see forward. And what I see is not a scenario in which 2 weeks in any way, shape, or form is enough for the United States to be able to restock, for instance, on interceptors. I mean, these take years to build, and the U.S. production is very slow when it comes to this.
And we're pretty much out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, remember, during the 12-day war, just in those 12 days, the United States consumed 25% of its THAAD batteries and interceptors. So, and, those takes years to rebuild. 2 weeks is not going to be enough for that. I think this is, again, part of what Trump wants to do. He wants to kind of show the muscles and think that this is going to actually add much value to his negotiations with the Iranians. But I have to say, if he manages to get out of this war through the ceasefire, and I think the base case scenario is that there won't be a deal, but the US won't go back into the war and will just leave and let the Iranians control the straits and say, well, now is the problem of Israel. Anyone else wants to continue this. But if he actually goes back into this war, I have to say it would be, as dumb as the first mistake was going into the war, to go into it again 40 days later is just absolutely mind-blowingly stupid. I do not see any military analysis that shows that suddenly the United States would be able to turn this around.
Yeah. When they call for peace, just know that sudden destruction is going to follow, man. All right? Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 22. Jeremiah 50 and 22, a sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? All right? It's going down. All right? NLT, Babylon, the mightiest hammer in all the earth, lies broken and shattered. Babylon is desolate among the nations.
So having managed to get himself out, I think Trump's instincts will be to stay out of this war, even if there isn't an agreement. I think that's the most likely scenario. There will not be an agreement, but there will be a non-agreed status quo out of this, in which the Iranians continue to control the straits, and the US pulls out of this war, and then the Israelis are going to have to make a decision. Are they going to go at Iran alone, or are they going to also back off because they really cannot take on Iran alone?
Of course, now the
That's why, America is being dragged into chaos. All right, they're not gonna go. They're not gonna go at Iran alone. All right, everything is moving according to prophecy.
Hormuz transactions will be settled in, I think, a stable coin that is part of the Trump family business. So Iran will be making money off of this, but so will the Trumps, basically, through like the stable coin transaction instead of using the US dollar to be backed by a US dollar stable coin setup. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So they'd make money. They'd be able to walk away. I don't know if I have that correct or incorrect. You can let me know and correct me.
I mean, look, I don't think it's entirely clear. What they have done so far is that they're charging the ships in yuan, and they are open to charging it in yuan or in crypto. Which exactly form of crypto it is, I don't know, and you may be absolutely right. It might be one of the cryptos that the Trump has some investments in.
Yeah, and we might be putting the cart before the horse on that. So we'll wait to get further clarification. I saw some reports about that. But
yeah, the reset is coming, man. Everything is leading towards the mark of the beast. All right? They're going to, whatever they're going to do, all right? They're going to take the system down, cyber attack, blackout, whatever, and that's going to usher in the MOTB system, all right? And this is what we're all looking for. We're waiting for it. We know it's coming, all right?
What I'll get you out of here on this, Dr. Parsi. What does the future look like then for Saudi Arabia and Israel if they're brought more closely together? As you mentioned, the Saudis aren't going to be terribly happy about that, but will they have a choice?
I don't think they will have a choice. I think actually the Saudis wanted the United States to continue until they felt that Iran had actually really been set back. But bottom line was there were no escalatory options for Trump out of this war. Iran had escalation control, dominance in this. And as a result, the way I see it, I think, look, going in was a huge mistake. By going out, even though it was on Iran's term, was the right decision. Because just staying in it would have been even more disastrous. Think about it this way. In May 23rd of 2003, Paul Bremer decided to dismantle the Iraqi army and send about 500,000 Iraqi soldiers home. And that was the beginning of the creation of the insurgency and everything. It was one of the most decisive mistakes the US committed in that war. Now, imagine if on May 22nd, George W. Bush would have come to the conclusion that he actually campaigned on no more nation building. And he would stick true to it and just say, you know what, this is Iraq, it's not our country, we're going to leave. A lot of people would criticize him. A lot of problems would follow because there would be a vacuum, etc. But I can guarantee you, all of the other problems that were caused by the United States staying for that long would not have come, including the creation of ISIS. That's how I see this decision right now. Yes, it is painful. Having started a bad war, there are no good outcomes. But staying in would have made it even worse.
Man, I hope you're right about this. I hope you're right. I hope you're right, and I hope I'm wrong.
Going down. All right. Shalom.